find your flow, follow the map. Mile high dreaming's got your back. Denver skies, trailhead pride. This is your moment, campfire vibe.
Hopefully this will be lighthearted, but valuable. That's my intent, at least. We'll see if I get it, okay? So my name is Michael Hudlow, and I wanted to speak today about all the things that happen to a technical system that I've experienced over 20-some years now, and I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem since 2007. And I've just seen many things repeat themselves that are not technical. They're just kind of basic process blocking, tackling, and they mess things up a lot. So thank you to all our sponsors. I think I've met people from every one of these, and I have to go check out their websites when we get done, but obviously it's cool to have all these good people here. So who am I? I'm Michael Hudlow. I am now VP of Modern Workforce Solutions. Isn't that snazzy? We made that up in about 1 minute. And I will you can take a picture of that now if you want, or at the very last slide I have the same QR code just if you want a PDF of the deck. So, who am I? Well, I wrote a book a couple years ago, right, called Adult Language, I'll just say F up, okay? So I wrote a book, and I came home. Well, that's really sad because I just said I came home and actually went back to my office at the end of the day, and it was in Manhattan, and this was maybe about 12 years into my Salesforce experience, and I kept seeing the same problems happen that were really unfortunate. And I literally sat down, and I'm not making this up, I just sat down and I just said, this book is written from the trenches. Now, mind you, I've never written a book at that point. I didn't even have an intention of writing a book before that, and I just wrote that one sentence, and then I just kept going. It ended up, I have no references in the book, it's all like a brain dump out of my head. It went to 800 pages, then I cut it back to 5, because people said, like, no one's buying that. I had a ball writing it, and I'd recommend if you ever think you might need therapy on business front, just write a book, because it's awesome. You just keep going with all the problems of the world, and you just anonymize it, and then you can talk real poorly about anybody you want, so it's thumbs up. Okay, so 20 years I've been doing, 20 years plus CRM leadership. I started the Salesforce division at Alvarez & Marsal, which is a New York-based, Manhattan-based consulting firm of about 10,000 people. Before that, I was with PwC and Arthur Andersen. Always been in the global systems type of space, but with A&M, with Salesforce, I ran it operationally internally for the firm itself, and then from a consulting standpoint as well. And it is when I wrote the book when I was there, so just as, FYI, but I'm not going to say that again. I also have been spending about the past year on working with AI agents as a kind of like a gateway, getting them into Salesforce. I also deal with other CRMs as well. I've heard, a lot of people are reluctant or hesitant to start, just go deep end into Agentforce. There are lots of other options out there outside of Salesforce that can really help you get information into the system. So that's just a side note, but I would just say explore that. It's pretty cool. And then, yeah, I've been working with Fortune 100 companies for too long. Okay, so my intent is, we'll see if we accomplish it, spot problem people. I call them saboteurs. I also call them other things in my book, but basically I'll just say the most outlandish is a-hole, but written out. And that's not necessarily the bad people, and they don't even mean to be that way, but they will impact your project that way, and certainly will make you probably say those words behind closed doors when you talk about something that's going, left or right. Identify the non-technical landmines, convert resistance into adoption, and then make all the differences work to your advantage. Yesterday, when Peter Coffey was talking, if you went to the second keynote, I think his title's head of strategy, or some straight Salesforce strategy. I was shaking my head or nodding my head up and down when he was speaking, because once again he was talking like I'm hopefully going to get away with about non-technical issues that happen in a technical environment. That's basically what he was talking about. Actually, some of the things he said, I think he copied them from me. I'm joking, so this slide comes out of left field because I thought of it this morning, but I want to convey this because I didn't put it anywhere on the deck anywhere else, but I probably will refer back to it. And this is one thing that Peter kind of sort of said yesterday, is that I have found that if I could say anything to a leadership of a company that wants to deploy Salesforce or any CRM, you have to promote constantly a sharing mentality at your firm. These tools only work if your people want to share information. If they don't, and if you don't promote it, this system it will not ever meet expectations. I mean, I've made a lot of my living on going into firms that have had Salesforce for 2 or 3 years and are really upset because they spent a lot of money and they don't see the reason why. And it's usually, now I'm not saying it's always about sharing, but that mentality is kind of like the root cause of, why things don't work. And last thing, not the last thing, that would be a really short presentation. And in closing, I've had so many leaders say to me, before, during, after an implementation, that they're just like, you know what, even if it's a pilot program of some, new cloud, whatever you want to call it, new widget that you're putting into your environment, and they build it and people are going to start using it. They say it so often, I've heard a lot of leaders say something to this effect, they have nothing now, they're going to be happy with that. Never work. I mean, literally, never works. People are upset, they have to change, and since there's nobody championing it because it's this attitude of, well, if it's there, they should be using it. I'm the leader, I paid for it, therefore they should be thankful. No, it just does not work that way. I just keep going back to, one, if that's someone's mentality, sorry about the microphone, you have to either get that to change or, I don't know, bail. No, I'm joking. Sorry about that. I think I've just too nice of a shaped head to keep that on. So here are the type of people, and once again, I am generalizing here. This is all, it's my opinion, but it's really based on a lot of good things, I think. I might end up holding this. So, yeah, I'm going to hold it. Can I hold it? No. No. This is okay. You don't mind, I don't mind. So, okay. Can you hear me now? All right, good. All right, so this is all based upon my experiences, and it's literally maybe 1,000 deployments. There are 3 general categories where I have found the most problem. Is that me doing that? This is going to look special. Okay, so we have leaders, and I'm going to talk about each of these. The general area that I see where it stems from is kind of like they think they've paid for a solution, and that's kind of the end of their involvement. Like, that was the biggest, hardest thing. You asked for, whatever, 100,000, a million, whatever the money is to get this thing. I got it for you. Checks are paid for. Go deploy and be successful. Doesn't work. And you need to be blunt about that to a leader. It's like, yes, that was hard, but that's not the end of it. And it actually will be the end of it in a bad way if that's what you think, okay? Saboteurs. Now, I say that word, obviously somewhat tongue-in-cheek. There are many of them in organizations. They don't necessarily believe that they're going to be saboteurs. They didn't, weren't raised that way. But you generally have the individuals that had the system that you're replacing, possibly, with a new process stream, or individuals that, developed the original way of doing things X amount of years ago, and they're going to be naysayers. And I'll speak about them later. But they're a huge group. And then the last group, salespeople. It could be anybody. Salespeople, users, consultants, whatever. They don't want their administrative burden to go up by 1 second. Okay, and they don't care. I mean, and once again, generalizing. So just put an asterisk on this whole presentation. They really don't care too much about all of the information that's going to come back to them, information that they would have never had if it requires more work on their part. That more work is the biggest thing. So, and I'll talk about this too, but just be conscious of that. And you have to make all three of these groups happy. And each one of these groups does exist in every project. So don't think they don't, they do. You have to identify them early on. Okay, so, yeah, cool. All right, does anyone work with that guy? Because I've met a lot of those people. And what I talk about that is, it is of paramount importance to find the highest level person of authority, or even the loudest person, you know, that guy in the corner of the office building somewhere that everyone kind of doesn't want to go past. And you have to figure out a way to get that person on your side as early on in the project, if not as part of the project that you sell to the leader. This person can manifest themselves in a bunch of ways, but the grumpier that person is, and if you flip them, it is so powerful to you to have the rest of your company say, what? You know, he likes it? You know, back a million years ago when I was a kid, there was a commercial for Life cereal. You're going to remember it. Maybe. Mikey. So I'm Michael, so I was Mikey everywhere I went. So there's a Life cereal, and it's like, hey, Mikey, he likes it. You know, and then all the kids started munching down on the cereal. But that's true here. And I know this sounds really juvenile, but it's so often that you don't get that person on your side, and they are like a disease. During the project, after the project, why adoption doesn't happen. Then you get called to the leader's office of like, why isn't this working? You're like, it's that dude. And it's, you know, they're just whispers down the lane. That's why, you know, as a saboteur or, you know, this type of person needs to be identified. And I know, you know, it's hard to believe that this is actually true. And that's a good thing about being off-site, like you're not at your office. We can talk about these people like this, but it's true. They exist, and they have better things to do in their mind than change to this new Salesforce thingy that you want them to do. You know, a lot of these people have the attitude is like, I didn't need this for the last 30 years of my career. Why do I need it now? You know, I'm like, I don't know. You might be retiring next week, and the people in the hallway don't know what you know, so let's get your information in. Yeah, it's a pleasant conversation. But that's what really is going on. And sometimes you have to think of people like, you know, you're in, you know, middle school. The other thing is if you remember, I mentioned about leaders themselves and getting them on your side. Now, the important thing to know here is that leaders are not just at the top of the pyramid, especially with the larger organizations. The CEO, you usually have a CEO and a board if it's a public, you know, company. Obviously, you're going to need their sign off to purchase whatever's happening, you know. But it doesn't stop there. The people, I've learned this has a laser pointer, so this is really cool. So the people like at this, and obviously you can just keep this pyramid, keep going down. But these other leaders below them and below them, if this person, the leader, only casually says, yeah, we're going to start using Salesforce next month, and then these people are like, yay, and this one's like, maybe, right? And then these people, it's just going to spiral out of control below the first naysayer in this bunch. And like, what do I call a naysayer? There are many leaders that have weekly meetings with their staff, weekly, monthly, you know, sales meetings every Thursday, every Friday, whatever the case may be. And they've been using the same Excel spreadsheet since like 1984, you know, but it works. So on Wednesday, that file gets shooting around all over the place. And then, you know, it all gets gathered in, and then they have this call. Well, if one of those leaders decides that we are still, you know, I know the person I report to wants it in this new dashboard way. Hopefully they do. But that person, if they tried to implement something like Salesforce to the people below them, like if they just are saving face and say, hey, yes, I've mandated Salesforce, but hey, on the Thursday meeting, make sure you send me your spreadsheet so the EA can put it into the system or whatever. These people here are going to revolt because guess what they're going to have to do? They're going to have to still fill out the spreadsheet and they're going to still have to put it in Salesforce so this guy can make this guy happy, or woman. So you really have to watch this mentality. And it happens almost every time. You don't know about it until like a week or a month or half a year into a system where you realize that, wait a minute, why is this all messed up? Why are people angry? Why is the information not in there? And that's usually, unfortunately, it's not tech. I mean, the tech is solid. I think we all know that. I mean, the tech is solid. It's people process. It's, okay. This one down here is like my favorite thing here. And this is what you need to kind of convey to the leaders. If it's not in, and I'm just going to say Salesforce, if it's not in Salesforce, it doesn't exist. You can't talk about it on the weekly meeting. You can't get, the high five in the hallway because no one is reading any other document except what's here. Now, you may have to make better dashboards, you may have better reports, whatever, but they're all doable. We all know they're doable. But if this doesn't happen, if people still allow people to, write a lead somewhere, these systems won't work. They never do. The other one here, retire legacy reports completely, and that kind of goes hand in hand with this. This one here, believe it or not, sunset all formal reporting methods. It goes bigger than reporting. Any system that parallels any functionality must be sunset, because if it doesn't, you're going to still have this bifurcated system, and it's going to sink you. And when I say sink you, I mean this because kind of like we're all brethren. I mean, it's your pride is in these systems, and they do work. I know they work, but they will fail for the most stupid reason, and it's always this kind of stuff. Not always, but pretty much always. Okay, so with the examples on how, excuse me, go back to the leaders, and I'll tell you one way that didn't work and how I morphed it into a working method. Years ago, I thought I was just being so smart, and I was it was actually in London, and Salesforce was up and running at this firm, and the leaders all wanted, okay, we're paying a lot of money for this. Like when I say leaders, the ones farther down the pyramid, but they're still high-level people. And there's like, what can we do with this? So I thought of this really novel idea. And I took this I went into all of them with an 11 by 17 sheet of paper, which over there is like, I don't know, E4 or something like that. And I just said, imagine you get into the office in the morning and you have a Gazette, a newspaper, that is specific for you. Take this Sharpie and draw what you wish that Gazette had. I want to hear my leads and my, people who are failing and, things I have to call, whatever. Your companies your clients in the news. I said, like, go to town. What would be on it? Yeah, that blew up in my face because it was just greenfield. It was just like, what? And I'm like, okay, lesson learned. So what I did do is then designed a Gazette for them, for everybody. The best KPIs that a leader would like to know. And just say, here's the starting point, use it for a month, and X out what you don't like. That worked. So it was just too big of a question for them. But my point being is that you need to go to those leaders, and you must, I'm going to blind myself. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to go to the next page. So what's going to happen here is you're going to, you must get them to believe in you, your team, and the solution Salesforce to the level that they say, you know what, it's not going to fail. This is definitely better than the way we used to do it. I can just see that. And You have to give them confidence in you that you're going to get them from the old world to the new world. And you're going to have to figure that part out, you know, the personalities of the individuals, but it's just huge importance to make things work. Okay, now, saboteurs all around. So in my book, I talk about, I think I have a chapter actually called Saboteurs and A-holes, and I think I'm due. And they don't necessarily know that they are, and they don't even intentionally mean that they are. But what they usually are is someone, and this is interesting, and it took me a while to figure this one out too. I would recommend that when you deploy anything, if it is replacing something that is currently at that company, find out who, if they're still there, find out who deployed the thing that you're replacing. All right? And here's why. That person could be a huge champion for you for the PR sake of it. You know, wow, that's that person, they now going on to the future, they've helped me with understanding, You can really highly promote that. And that's the other thing, promote. Be transparent, not just to the project team. But the issue here is if that person exists, you didn't identify them and you didn't include them, I'm telling you right now, put them in the saboteur category, because they will be, because no one wants to hear their baby's ugly. Sorry, they don't. So that person's going to take it personal that you're replacing their system, and they don't like it anymore, and you know, whatever. It is, once again, middle school kind of stuff. It still exists. So if you can find that person, great, especially if it's like a homegrown system, something that the company made themselves, and it's probably someone's pride and joy that they developed this in frickin' Fortran in the 1980s, you know, I mean, but trust me, they still have pride in it. The other reason for people, I say this meeting is unknowingly undermined, is that, you know, a lot of people think, a lot of divisions, a lot of geographies think that they are so unique in their ways that something made for everybody isn't going to work necessarily for them. So, and that's just because, in my opinion, they don't have a full education of what's to come, because the things can be flexible and can accommodate lots of different styles. But they frequently will leave a meeting and kind of like say, yeah, we're all on board, and then afterwards it's like, they're not getting back to you on questionnaires or surveys, or you hear rumbles in the hallway. You need to usually go one-on-one with those individuals and just say, hey man, if you feel strongly about this, maybe I don't understand. Tell me what you're seeing right now, and once again, pull them into the fold. It's just I'm just making sure I'm okay. It's of huge importance. I know I keep saying that, but that's why I only had 3 boxes in that one first slide. It's just that these little things just happen too much. All right, I just gave you examples how. Okay. Oh, and also these individuals are usually what I would say medium to high level individuals. Senior people in a division or in a geography, probably have the ear of the leader of that area. They're also probably not the best person to have on your project team, quite frankly, because they're usually not the people that are going to get impacted by any kind of administrative change that has to happen. They may say they know and they speak for anybody, but the reality is the users of the system are usually more important than that individual. So you might have to split, kind of like, that person's involvement and also the people below them's involvement. And I can always tell you, here's the kiss of death. When a person like that says, you don't need those people's involvement, I speak for all of them. Oh my gosh, no they don't. If they say that, it's bad news, because that really means, I don't even know, low self-esteem. I'm not sure what that means, but it really means you need more people on the team from that department. Just hear that out. Okay, how to convert resistance into adoption. Did you see that table jumping about? Yeah. Listen first, solve second. I know and don't put words underneath the image. That's the other thing you should never do. So, listen first, solve second. That's basic project management stuff. Just, if you have a team, a project meeting or whatever it is, be quiet for a lot of it. Let people vent, especially at the beginning. The top leadership really gets concerned about, ROI and how much the system costs and that kind of stuff. The people that actually make the system a success are really thinking about, how is this going to make my personal life better? And then next, how's it going to make, they're already thinking like, what reports can I get out of doing? What's this going to do for me? What do I have to learn? They're, frequently scared. I think it's your role, anybody working in this field, it's your role to open up the eyes of, don't be technical. Trust me, that's also bad. Don't be technical. Just say, no, it's going to be easier. We're going to make it easier. If you don't think it's going to be easier, let me sit, have yourself or one of your team sit down with that person and say, show me a day in the life of what you do. Just that level of respect is huge. But if you take something from there and throw it into your project, then your project probably will become better because you probably don't see what they're looking at, right? Yeah, I said, what's in it for me? Yeah, okay. So the next slide, I think, is the one I really want to, it is, the one I want to get to. Okay, so salespeople. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Salespeople, and I'm using the word salesperson very generically, they want to, wait for it, sell. Okay, they don't want to do anything else except try to make money. And quite frankly, the firm itself or the company itself wants them making money. There's no doubt about that. But the fallacy here is that what they're doing can't be improved upon. I've had many senior salespeople or consultants say to me, I walked in with a piece of paper. I'll actually give you an exact example, but every name will be changed. Just really, really big senior managing director at a Big Four consulting firm, makes ungodly numbers of money. And he went into one of the big Manhattan banks that you've probably seen on TV before. And his company got the contract from this bank. And it had nothing to do with Salesforce, but it was me speaking with him, and he was giving this as his example, which I kind of threw it in his face, and then we didn't talk after that. But he said to me, he said, our competitors, which are the other Big Four consulting firms, went in there with like a small flotilla of consultants, to go in there with binders and, to speak to the board of this bank. And then he said, he just walked in with himself, no team of people, and a sheet of paper, and he won the deal. Right. I'm like, yay. All right, good. I said, okay, so going back to what I said earlier, I said, how many of you work at this company, our company? Like, how many of you work here? He's like, I'm like, you, one. How is everyone going to learn what you just did if it's not being shared in some central repository where other people can learn? I mean, how do you truly expect this company to go on if I have the sheet of paper and I'm retiring next year plan doesn't work out for us? I mean, it doesn't work out. So, he didn't like that. But he got the point, is the fact that these, I can say it because I'm older, people my age and older largely have faith in what we did to get where we are, as opposed to where everyone needs it to get to where we want to go. And, the other thing is like, for example, salespeople and all the leaders and everything here. And I say it right down there because this is the biggest thing with salespeople right there. They hate the sharing mentality. They want to hoard contacts. They want to hoard, once again, I know there's nice ones out there. And they're not here. All right, anybody here? Okay, good. Kick my butt. But, it makes sense, right? I mean, you get paid based upon commission and all that kind of good stuff. But, the change in all that is, well, guess what? If everyone is doing it on their own and it's not in a system, then they're already doing what you are fearful that they will do, meaning they're not sharing with you. So you have no hope of learning about a possible add-on work that you can do. You have no hope if they could march into your favorite client today and you wouldn't even know they were there. But you have a central system, you all will know that, right? So what you just said as the argument is truly not. It's actually the answer. If you put everything into a system, and that system is shared at the appropriate levels, of course, then no one can go hit one of your potential opportunities that you've been scouting because it's documented. And if someone is going to someplace based upon whatever, what's happening at that client, then you have the ability to get an introduction and get in the door. Without a system like this, you can't. So, that I have a piece of paper and I'm going to win everything mentality, that's long gone. And you just need to somehow nicely say, better than I just did, say something that resonates with those people. And okay, so here's my opinion on, I kind of alluded to this in the very beginning. So I thought of this pie chart a while ago. And I said, if a salesperson says that 10% of their current business life is doing administrative stuff, expense reports, time reports, and filling out the weekly spreadsheet, for opportunities or whatever they do. If it's 10% of their time, if you add, and it doesn't matter what you're giving back to them, meaning I assume you're going to give them much more information than they ever could. But if you increase that 10% to 11%, and that's the red line that I very artistically put on there, it doesn't matter. I'm serious. It's going to be very, very blunt. You're going to have a hard time, if not fail, because you've increased the load on the people that are already one of the 3 problem areas that I was just identifying. So what I like to say to any project team is that whatever that real number is, whatever the number is for the company that you're going to, if it is 10%, do your best to make that workload 9. Don't make it more than 10. If you keep it at 10, then you must make the value add that's coming back at them, irrefutable. They can say, whoa, yeah, I'd have to do it differently, but it's the same amount of time and I'm getting so much better information. But what you really want to do is close that down and give them more. I know that sounds like a lot of work, but it's just there is this mental stumbling block that happens with any. Okay, I'm not good on time. So with any kind of thought, like they are already not going to be your best friend just because they don't want to change. Don't give them another reason to make your life harder. So I would say, in addition to the saboteur and the leaders, with the salespeople, this is a really big thing. If you can honestly say, we're reducing your administrative workload, right off by that, you don't even have to give them more. They'd love you. Now, if you give them more plus that, you've just converted them. And sometimes it's that simple. Okay. I have said this before, that I should never put words underneath pictures. Should make note of that. Okay, so this is kind of in some summarization. Transform the known sticks in the mud at the company. If you don't know who they are, you need to identify them because they're there. Okay, you need to figure it out. And if you're doing consulting work, then talk to people and say, who should I be speaking with? Who is probably going to be the hardest person to train, to implement? And they're going to read between the lines, and get to know that person and ask their advice. And literally come out and say, look, I've done this. And you say, I'm concerned that you're not going to be happy, and your happiness is important to me because 1, I need you to be on my side. And 2, I need you to be on my side because people are going to follow you. And just that little bit of an ego bush is sometimes all it takes. And just say, look, this is what I'm planning to do. How do you feel about that? Let them feel, if it's not true, but still, let them feel that they are being huge participants in what your effort is doing. Departmental silos. You guys still? Okay, good. Departmental silos. There are, one of the biggest screw-ups I've ever seen was the fact that there were all these siloed, it was actually double matrixed organizations. So they had a geographic structure and an industry siloed structure. And it was just a nightmare because and it was maybe 20 divisions. So it was a really big operation. And every one of these divisions had their own business development, route to market. And of course, their way was the best way, right? So trying to get the 20 of them, and I got called in after the fact because this had already happened, and that's my excuse. I'm sticking to it. But I did get called in after. What happened is that the hired consultant kind of effectively threw up their hands and obliged everybody. So the sales input form for like a new opportunity, I'm not joking. You had to probably scroll down 3 screens. And I'm just like, this is supposed to be like name, rank, and serial number. Like, and that's, in, out, and this was, everybody had their own thing, the collapsing sections, and the form was it's like a roll of toilet paper, how long it was. And I'm just like, this is a failure. How do you even report on this? How do you cross-sell from division to division? And of course, they're like, oh. And I'm like, well, anyway, I fired the consulting firm. But it was just like, you don't try to make everyone happy. You'll make everyone not happy, okay? Just, but you do need to get them all to understand why, hey, we need to come up with the best of breed. We must come up one way that works for everybody. Of course, it can have some flexibility in it, but it is huge. So what I say by transform the gnomes, sticks in the muds, and use the departmental silos, use them as breakout groups. You'll find if you bring people to a meeting to say, how do we consolidate these processes into something that basically everyone can live off of, it's much easier to have one common way that goes 90%, and then if one division says, I can't live with that, then break them off at a certain point and say, here's the little special 10% down here for you. Much easier to do, and it doesn't kill everybody else. If you get those siloed groups into a room and say, the intent here is to make this in a common way, once again, like I said before with the salespeople, they're going to say, well, they respect me. They want my opinion on this. And then they're going to use their power to convince the other people. They're going to pull other people in, and it's all going to start funneling into one process that you, quite frankly, didn't have to, step on their neck and say, this is what we're doing. It's all about, I was going to say egos, and that is a lot of it, but it's a lot of people think they're really, really special when they're just, kind of special. Data integrity. I'm just going to hit the button here because I know it's coming up here. You really need to make sure that individuals, users, understand that data integrity starts with them. And you don't make this all about being an IT issue. For somebody every 6 months to run the really expensive deduping engine, it starts at a much more basic level. And it's also the issue that goes back to the thing what I was just talking about is a process that works for everybody and not just, a few. Right? So I know you guys know about data, but I'm saying it is a huge thing, and it manifests itself going all the way back to the beginning of my presentation with departments still using their secret spreadsheets and whatever. It all contributes to this problem. And especially with the advent of the AI world, AI, it's amazingly fast, and it's going to give you amazingly fast bad answers if the data is not right, okay? It's going to be fantastically fast. Just really dumb. Okay. All right. Communication. I have to pick up my pace here. So anyway, I'll get to this, I promise. Your project needs to be publicized, for lack of a better word, at the company that you're doing all this work for. Not just within the project team, not just in the participants. There needs to be some type of momentum out there that there is change on the horizon. And it could just be a new cloud that you're adding. But it's much better if everyone understands that there are new capabilities and there's promise out there. One of the worst enemies here is surprise. Hey, it's tomorrow and Here it is. So I would say master the art of cross-functional collaboration. Get those individual divisions talking to each other, not through you, but to each other, and then you can be the note taker and the person to figure out how to actually make it all work, but let them come up with the answers. Change management. Yeah, it's no one likes change. I think I put something in here. Yeah, people don't resist change, they resist being changed. Once again, it goes back to personalities. They need to make sure that their world, ultimately, you want to let them believe that all this was their idea. I know that's kind of crazy, but that's what happens. And also, right here, publicly and frequently recognize the value of people being impacted. You know, people need to be recognized for their contribution or their ideas or anything like that. The more you do that, the more those people become your champions and the less chance you have of saboteurs and, well, you get it. And then I'm at the end right now. That little red dot tells me I'm at the end, so we're perfecto. Over-customization goes back to the form I just told you about. Killer. You know, you got to keep things as simple. Configure, don't customize if you can. Balance technical capabilities with user need. And that line is one of my favorites. Just because you can build it doesn't mean you should. I was very, 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 when I was much, much younger, coming back from Dreamforce, and I would come back to my office and like, oh my God, I can fix world hunger. You know, I just saw everybody who knew how to fix everything. And then every one of the people that I reported to, I work with, were like, what are you talking about? I mean, you've so drunk the Kool-Aid, and then you lose your own credibility. So all I'm saying here is, just because it's out there, you don't need to do it. Fix pain points, don't find a problem for a tool that you just found. And then, you know, the last thing is the thank you, and there's the other thing. If you want the deck, you can just hit that. It's a PDF version of it. I wanted to ask if anyone here has any questions on anything. Nothing? The weather? No? Okay. Thank you for your time. I hope this added some value to your day. And I know it's the end of the day, so I really do appreciate you coming in here and listening to me ramble. But I do have fun at doing this, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Find your flow, follow the map, mile high dreaming.